Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Ballot, a Lone Wolf production. This is a podcast where we talk about local politics and the issues that really matter to our community. Today's episode is sponsored by Chairman Fannin and the Carmel Republican Committee. Want to make a real difference in Carmel and Mahopac? Join the movement shaping our hometown's future. Follow the Carmel GOP on Facebook to stay informed, get involved, and help strengthen the Republican voice right here at home. I'm proud to introduce today's guest and our final guest for the podcast, Carmel Town Councilman and Deputy Supervisor Frank Lombardi, who is currently running for Putnam County Legislator for District 8. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
That was a mouthful.
Thank you very much.
Right there.
Yes, no, you did a great job. You did a great job. Thank you for having me. I know it is your so-called, we'll see, final podcast. But what you've done since you created this, and I remember it was because of the Batty Farm issue, but since then you've lent a lot to the public discussion here in town, and we all thank you. And we don't want to see you go. We'll allow you to take a small hiatus.
Thank you.
But you know the issues that are important, you address them all. You have great guests, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your kind words. So, before we get into discussing your current role as Carmel Town Councilman and Deputy Supervisor and your campaign initiatives as Putnam County Legislator, I want the listeners to hear a little bit about your personal background and how long have you lived in Mahopac?
Sure. So I was born and raised in the Northeast Bronx in the Pelham Bay and Country Club section. First generation Italian American. My dad was a machinist, God rest his soul. My mom was a bookkeeper and cashier at some of the local supermarkets. They put myself and my brother through Catholic school. All our lives started at St. Teresa in the Bronx. I went to Mount St. Michael, graduated Fordham University with a degree in political science and public administration, and then went to law school at St. John's Law School. Graduated in 1995 and have been practicing law continuously for 30 years. I have 3 wonderful children who have all been through the Mahopac school system. Anthony, who's currently at the end of their birthdays are like within the next few weeks. So they're 28. Frankie is 25, and my daughter Alexa, who's a nurse, is 24.
So how long have you been here?
I've been in Mahopac, and actually in this particular legislative district for over 23 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been I love this town. I have a passion for this town. You can see all the things that I've been involved in over the years. I love this town. I love the people of this town. It's great. It was a great place to raise my children. It's a great place for them to continue to live. For our seniors, for my mom is here, as well as my brother, who is Chief Medical Officer at St. Barnabas Hospital in the Bronx. I'm very, very proud of him. That's a huge, huge endeavor. And they're all here in town, and he's raising his 3 children here as well. My niece is about to go to college. My mom, she's 5 minutes away from me and 5 minutes away from my brother, and we're very, very lucky to still have her here, and we have that great family relationship.
So who were your mentors or role models in your life that made a difference?
Well, obviously, I would have to say for sure, first and foremost, my dad. He came here to this country with one suitcase. Actually, it was like an old leather duffel bag. And from that, he's one of 11 children.
Wow.
And yeah, so his mom, my grandmother, passed away during childbirth. He was one of 5, and then my grandfather remarried, and he had 6 more. So my dad is one of 11, and he's the only one who had come here to this country seeking a better life. Everybody else is still in Italy. One uncle has passed away, but all the others I still keep in touch with, and I'm lucky that we have WhatsApp, and I'm able to speak Italian, so I keep in touch with them too. But he started out with nothing. We still have that leather.
Oh, really?
We still have that leather bag that he came here with. It's not going anywhere. That's a family treasure.
So who's gonna inherit it? You or your brother?
Well, I'm the oldest.
Okay, all right.
So I get it. So we haven't had the discussion yet, but I think that's the way it's going to go. and from that, he and my mom, they first, they bought their own home. They struggled and sacrificed. My dad did not buy a new car until he lived here in Mahopac when he was retired. What mattered to him was his children, their education, their well-being, and he put his, desires and my mom's as well. They put them on the back burner to make sure that my brother and myself and their grandchildren, my children and my brother's children, had a better life. And putting two kids through Catholic school, law school, medical school, is not an easy task. The price of education today, and being a machinist, first generation, being an immigrant, my mom, same thing. They are my role models, and everything that I do in my life is a reflection of them, and I always want them to be proud of me. And it was funny, my dad used to bring me, he was part of a homeowners association in the Bronx. So I was the only kid. I was like 12. And I was going there, and I met, lots of different people, and that sparked my interest in public service and local events and local community and local issues. And ever since then, I just had a desire to serve, had a desire to stay involved, and I'm sure we'll go through later on all the above. Yeah, it was just, it was just something that I always had a desire to help others, and to make sure that our community could be the best that it can be.
What is something people might not know about you and find interesting?
Okay, a couple of things. Well, number one, me and my dad, who passed away, have the same birthday. I speak 3 languages, Italian, English, and Spanish. I was a lectern at St. Patrick's Cathedral years ago for a scout event, which was amazing, which was really, really amazing. Let's see.
Who was there? Cardinal Zola?
At that time, At that time, it was Cardinal Cook.
Okay.
That was a long, long time ago. And it was a lot of fun. And actually, right now, this time of year is Scout Sunday, where the Boy Scouts get their scouting religious awards. It's called Scout Sunday. I think it's actually tomorrow. And by the way, I have with me here today an Eagle Scout candidate, Liam, who's been going door to door with me, who is working on some merit badges, so I wanted him to come and see this today. Liam's probably walked with me maybe 50, 100 homes already.
Wow.
And he's enjoying it. And also, I don't want to be remiss, I have here with us as well Leslie Mancuso, who's the vice chair of the Carmel Republican Committee. More importantly, she's a longtime friend and past president of the Mahopac School Board. And she's a big supporter and a great friend. And I run everything through her because she's smart. And when she was on the school board, it wasn't an easy time in our economy. And she guided our school district through a lot of perilous economic times. So I admire her, and that's why she's here with me today.
And lastly, I have to ask this question out of curiosity. Your name is Frank D. Lombardi.
Correct.
D for Dino.
Correct.
So were you named after 2 members of the Rat Pack?
No,
Frank
I was
Sinatra
not.
And Dean Martin?
No.
I have to ask that.
I was not. Great question and great assumption. No, actually, I was named, my middle name is from, my dad was an avid enjoyer of soccer. And at that time, when I was born in 1970, I guess there was some really popular soccer player named Dino on the Italian national team or something other. That's how I got that name.
Okay.
Dino.
All right.
But it works out well that it works out well that Dean Martin would be a great.
All right. So now we're going to dive into a more serious, subject matters.
Sure.
We have a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your professional experience? You kind of did a little bit.
Yeah.
And what had specifically prepared you for the role of county legislator?
Sure. So, like I said, I graduated law school in 1995, and I've been practicing in private practice for 30 years as a civil litigator. And as a civil litigator and a trial attorney, you have to get through the facts. You have to make determinations. You have to deal with others. You have to negotiate. You have to, at times, you have to fight. You fight for your clients. So I done that. I'm a partner at a law firm now. It's at this particular law firm. We do insurance civil defense work all over the state of New York. I am the Bronx, Brooklyn, and an upstate guy. So I've been practicing pretty much in the Bronx courthouse, across the street from Yankee Stadium, for about 2 or 3 times a week for the past 30 years. And one other interesting thing about that is, while I was going there so often, I saw the new stadium being built, and I saw the old stadium torn down. So, which was
pretty bittersweet.
Yeah. But
we won't get into the Yankees because the production here, we're Met fans. So
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
I know.
Also, part of my career was I was a legislative assistant to Senator Terrence Murphy in the New York State Senate. So I did that, and I got familiar with some of the procedures and stuff like that up in Albany. I also helped draft legislation in my function at the town. This is my 15th year on the town board, and I've been deputy supervisor under Supervisor Kenny Schmidt, who's supporting my campaign, and also Supervisor Michael Kazari, who's also a supporter as well. I've negotiated. I think one of the strengths that I bring is my skill to negotiate, is my skill to listen, and I think I bring the temperature down in the room. I'm a very calming presence, and I bring the temperature down. I'll let people say whatever they need to say, and then we'll have a discussion. I've negotiated contracts with all the unions. One of the things that I've actually been most proud of is that we've negotiated contracts with the police, with the Lieutenants Association, with the Highway Association. And usually there's an attorney present for all those discussions. But because I'm an attorney and I'm an experienced negotiator, we only hire the attorney, which is a few $100s an hour, at the very, very end, when we've come to an agreement with the unions and we just need to be put on paper. So I think I've saved the taxpayers, thousands of dollars in legal fees based upon my experience as an attorney, as a litigator. I can read some of the things that come into town, the legislation, the issues, with an attorney's eye, with a legal mindset. That's been my career.
As Carmel Town Councilman and Deputy Supervisor, tell the viewers about some of the accomplishments you're most proud of.
Yeah. There's a lot that I'm proud of, and there's also some that, sometimes unfortunately with some votes you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you're going to make some people angry, but you're trying to do the right thing for the entire town. And sometimes you lose friends and things like that, but at the end of the day you want to always do the right thing. When I took office in 2010, we were in the middle of a recession, and things were bad financially. So during my time on the town board, when I started, the town had a fund balance, which is like the town savings account, for roughly, I think it was like about $6 million or so at that time. And through the efforts of basically conservative financial management, making great decisions by the entire board, but I was present for it, we're now at $17 million. So the town has $17 million in a savings account, which we've built out. Is there a cap? No,
okay.
There's no cap. And because of the financial management and the fact that we pay our bills on time, we have that reserve fund that we do. We have what's called a AA1 bond rating, which for a municipality is tremendous. So if we ever have to go out to bond something or borrow money, we pay close to nothing because our credit score is so good. So that's really, really important to me, the financial aspect of it. It's all the taxpayers' money. It's always the taxpayers' money. As a taxpayer myself, and I know you are as well, that's super important that we always keep an eye on that. I've always focused on quality of life issues. I've always wanted to make sure that people here were safe, the neighborhoods were safe and clean, and we had a great place to raise our children. We've put on, since I've been on the town board, maybe 3 or 4 more parks. And I love going to see them being used by all the kids all the time. And we have dedicated parks now for baseball and soccer and lacrosse and things like that. So that's what I wanted to do in this job, is to improve the quality of life for the residents of the town of Carmel. One thing that I took on a few years ago, there used to be a dump on Union Valley Road, and it was defunct. And since that time, people would go there and just dump their refrigerator, stove. Contractors would go there and dump tiles and sheetrock and stuff like that. So what I was able to do is, we had that area cleaned up on Union Valley Road, and we put up barriers for people not to be able to go in there any longer. It was almost like a U-shaped driveway. You go in, you dump your stuff, and you leave, which obviously was illegal. And working with the police, we put up some cameras all over town to prevent dumping in town, because pollution and it's just terrible. Who wants to see it? We're in an amazing town. We're in an amazing town, and we don't need to see garbage on the side of the roads and people dumping. So since that time, we've actually been able to widen that area of Union Valley Road, because it was very tight on a curve. And so we widened the road, and it's, I don't want to say landscaped, but it looks so much nicer. And it's improved the look of the town, and it's improved, when people are driving by.
Yeah.
It's a
You don't
heavily
want an
used.
eyesore.
It was an eyesore for the residents, and it was, Union Valley Road is a huge road. From one side, from Route 6 all the way down to Croton Falls Road, and it's in Legislative District 8, and we cleaned that up. Another thing that I'm very proud of, and of course I give credit where credit is due, is to our police department. But we in the town of Carmel are the second safest town in New York State, and I think the one ahead of us has more cows than people. so very, very proud of that. So financially we're doing much better. Our town is safe thanks to the great work of the police department. So I'm really proud of some of those things. A couple other things that I did earlier in my career. There were some issues going on. I remember some stories about in SeaWorld in Florida, some people were getting arrested for some issues with young children. So I said, well, you know what we need to do is, here in town, we need to pass a law that everyone who works for the town, and especially those dealing with our children, get fingerprinted. We were first ones to do that.
Oh, really?
Yes,
wow.
Yes. Also, that time, now it's changed, but there was a big issue with synthetic marijuana being sold. And I wrote, and then the town board passed a resolution banning the sale of synthetic marijuana here in the town of Carmel. Now, since then, obviously, the state has passed, legalized, cannabis and marijuana. But I was, again, the leading voice against the town of Carmel having those kind of shops here in town. There was a lot of people that wanted it, but my feeling is, and the feeling of the police department, is that the use of marijuana, legalizing it, creates more issues, safety issues for the residents of the town. We already
attracts
have
certain clientele.
Yeah, and we already have issues with drunk driving, and now do we need stone driving, and how do you measure that? So it's just better that we didn't have it here, and the police and the police associations all didn't want it, and I was a big proponent of that as well. So those kind of things, I'm really, really proud of what we've done. More recently, and ever since my career started, I always said, well, we're the town of Carmel. We're the biggest town. We contribute so much sales tax to the county because of the development that we do, because our police department keeps the roads safe, because our highway department keeps the roads clean and snow plowed in the wintertime, that people are conducting transactions here in town, and they're doing business locally, which is wonderful. But why are we shouldering the burden, or have the burden of doing all those things, yet not getting any sales tax revenue back from the county? And I argued about that for years, and a prior county executive did not like what I was saying, but I still said it. I said, that we need to share the sales tax revenue, because after all, I don't know if you remember, like during the pandemic, everybody was ordering online. And I always thought that, well, people aren't shopping anymore, we're losing revenue. But in fact, it was quite the opposite. Everybody who orders from Amazon, the county gets sales tax on it. When gas, unfortunately, sometimes when it goes up or down, the county has share of the tax on gasoline. So after years and years, and County Executive Byrne, who supports me as well in this campaign, has given me credit for the arguments that I've made over the years. And just past year, the legislature, along with the municipalities, came to an agreement on sharing sales tax.
Right.
Which for the residents of the town of Carmel is a big deal, because we're projected to get right now, which it just started a couple of months ago. We started receiving money from the sales tax revenue from the town, from the county. We're already at $215,000. We're projected by the end of the year to be somewhere about $700,000 or $800,000. So what we'll do with that money is put it into our infrastructure, into our roads, into our parks, paving, drainage, all those things that we would sometimes have to borrow money for, or put in our budget, and people would you'd have to maybe raise taxes, or taxes would have to pay for those things. Now all of a sudden we have $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 that we can dedicate for our infrastructure. So that saves the taxpayers a significant amount of money.
I will say this. I think a lot of residents wish that Mahopac Carmel had more of like a shopping center vibe, more businesses, like almost like a Ridge Hill kind of deal, just to try to like shoulder the burden a little bit.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And one of the issues that strangles the town of Carmel is there was a municipal agreement with the city of New York. As you know, we're locked by the reservoirs that are around our town, and which feed the water to New York City.
Right.
So there was an agreement done, and we're in the watershed, right? So we're kind of limited on some of the businesses that we can bring in, and what we can do with some of the roads and some of the drainage issues and things like that. So it constrains us. But I think, we have a really good plan going forward of, and we did just finish our master plan, last year, of trying to get more businesses, more mom and pops, but more businesses in town. And people say, oh, why don't we bring in such and such business, or such and such store? I'm like, well, because those stores do their own homework, and they see how many residents drive down the road, what's the median income of the town. And some of them, no matter how many times you ask them, they're like, it doesn't help their bottom line, so they're not going to move here. So you have to try to attract different kind of businesses. And I think the fact that we are a very safe town, a clean town, town with great schools, great parks, attracts a lot of people to our town.
So why now? What made you decide that this was the right time for you to run for a legislator position? And what unique perspective would you bring to that position?
Sure. No, that's a great question. In my career, I've never run against anyone who's already in office from our own party, simply because I got along with everybody so well. I do my job on the town level, somebody else does it on the county level, somebody else does it on the state level, and we all get along. We all need each other to do the work on behalf of the people of the town. So after 15 years, Amy Sage, who is our county legislator now in District 8, called me and said that she was not going to run again. She was able to, and she was going to endorse and support me for, she just said, you're the right person. I mean, after 15 years of 14 plus years of service to the town of Carmel, on the town board, 4 or 5 years on the planning board. Before that, the environmental conservation board of the town. I learned every step of the way I learned, and I used this more than I used this. And that's, I think, what's being lost today is people want to talk before they actually listen. So you should an old judge, Judge Burke Katz, who's passed away since, always told me in my younger days when he was on the bench, he goes, Frank, he goes, I know you're getting involved. He goes, but remember this, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in proportion. And I'll never forget that, and it's true. And I like to listen, I like to learn. Sometimes, you may see me on the town board, I may not say anything because I'm listening intently and I'm thinking to myself, okay, based on what the information was, what's the right thing to do? So Amy said she wasn't going to run again, and she was supporting me. And in fact, she gave me a glowing, amazing endorsement. And she just said, you're the right person for the job. Our county executive is supporting me as well. The first endorsement, actually, that we posted was from Congressman Mike Lawler, who I've gotten to know very, very well, and we've discussed a lot of issues, and we've worked together on a lot of things, and he said, Frank, you're the right guy at this time for this position. Assemblyman Matt Slater, same thing. I told you the other supervisors, Councilman Kearns, Leslie Mancuso, former school board member. There's members of the school board currently who are supporting me because they just feel that after all the experience of 14 years on the board, being a dad, being a taxpayer, being a coach, being part of the church group, being part of our community and everything that I've done and contributed to, that I'm the right person for the position of county legislator. And one of the things more recently was 2 things which stand out to me in this past couple of years. Number one, I told you about the sales tax that I was pushing for a long time. The other thing that transpired in Legislative District 8 not too long ago was the issue of, which brought you to the table, was the battery storage facility, which was a couple of miles away from me, where I live, and people would come to the town board and rightly so express their concerns, and I worked with them. Behind the scenes, I worked with them, and I was instrumental, and I interviewed the attorney that we hired to fight on behalf of the town the battery storage facility. So I helped draft the the moratorium against them, because we needed that step before we actually took the next step to ban them here in the town of Carmel. And many members of that that group of residents are supporting me because I fought for them, I stayed with them. One of the spokesperson, I'm sure you know, Lauren Roslin. Lauren Roslin is a huge supporter, and her and her husband have become very, very good friends. And she is behind my campaign, and she says, we need you now. So that's one of the things that I think that I fight for the residents. There was the other issue, and I batted heads with some other elected officials, but I thought it was the right thing to do. There was a proposed stabilization center being put in Carmel. And I spoke to some of the residents there, and I think you met Spencer Tessler, who's an amazing, amazing individual, and turned out to be a great friend, who contacted me about it and asked me for my advice of what to say. So at the meeting, the public hearing, he was going, "Oh, Frank, I'm nervous." I'm going up with you. And I stood with him, and to this day he says, "I'll never forget that." And I just think that was not the right thing for the residents of the Carmel Hamlet to have that stabilization center. And some elected officials were in favor of it, and some of us were not, but
Right, you understand there's a need for it, but it's just not the right location.
It was not the right location. Right. Correct. And Here's the thing. All these elected officials that I told you have endorsed me. I've worked with them all over the years, and most of the time, we've agreed on what's the right course of action for the residents of the town of Carmel. Sometimes we're not going to agree, and when I get to the legislature, I'm going to work with our county executive, who we've been friends from before he was elected into office. We've been friends for 15, 16 years. And I can call him up or go into his office and say, Kevin, there's this issue. Here's my view. Here's my position. He'll give me his. And you know what? I would say 80% of the time we're going to agree. But there'll be times, but I'm not going to go out there and yell and scream and make a spectacle and put it in the newspaper that I'm having a fight with another elected official.
Especially if you have the same political affiliation, right?
Listen, Ed Koch used to say, if you agree with me 75% of the time, I'm happy. If you agree with me 100% of the time, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
You can't agree with somebody 100% of the time. But the idea is to work together. And I think my political life from day one has been working with other elected officials. All of the ones that have endorsed me, we've worked together for the benefit of the town of Carmel. So I bring a lot of that kind of stuff and experience to the table. And I think that will make, and especially with some of the things that are going on in the Putnam County Legislature now, with some little bit of fighting and not getting along with some issues, I think I can come to the table and say, guys, let's work this out. We're all intelligent people. We're all friends at one time. We don't have to agree on everything, but we have to come to a consensus for what's right for the people of Putnam County. And I've done that in my role as councilman and in my role as deputy supervisor, and I hope to do that as county legislator as well.
So almost every guest that I've had on the show, we've spoken about transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, there was an article written in the Maypac News. Putnam lawmakers split over a live streaming mandate measure fails. What is your take on this recent development, and how would you ensure that transparency is exercised?
Yeah, no, great question. I saw that article. I actually spoke to the county executive about it. I read the legislation, and all I can say is, based on my track record here in the town of Carmel, we have our meetings on both Comcast and Verizon. We live stream all of our meetings as well. We try to put notices for everything out there as often as possible. I don't know if you see, like sometimes in front of a property now that's before the planning board or the zoning board does those signs, those white signs. We implemented that during our tenure. That wasn't here before, because we want to give people as much notice and as much information as we can. We updated our town website to make it super user-friendly, and we put everything on our website. We put everything on our Facebook page, whether it be from the supervisor's office or from the Parks Department or the Highway Department or the Police Department. So transparency is key. People need to know what the government is doing, what you're doing with their tax money. And one of the things that I would call a transparency also, and Liam experienced this week as we were walking around door to door, people they want to know, where you stand, and so meeting them in the supermarket or meeting them in the park or meeting them at church, they get to see you and they feel comfortable in asking you questions about what's going on. And so that's transparency too. It's not just the transparency with social media or with the internet or computers. It's transparency going to the supermarket like I do a couple of times a week, church, the farm, whatever, and people recognize me, talk to me. And in fact, a couple of months ago, an older gentleman, I was going to get something for my son at the store. He goes, "Oh, Mr. Lombardi, Mr. Lombardi." I'm like, no, call me Frank, please. He goes, "Oh, I just want to let you know," he goes, "I've lived in this town all my life." And he goes, "And I've watched you on the town board." And he goes, "I think everything that you do is great. And I've never seen a more passionate, intelligent council member in my time here. I said, thank you. I said, but
Were you blushing?
I don't know. He didn't tell me. He didn't tell me. Oh, but when you get that from people who don't go to town board meetings, but they may watch them on TV or they may read the newspaper and see what's going on. When you get that response back from people, listen, there's always going to be people who are detractors from you, and that's fine. You deal with them politely, but there's so many people out there who are like, we're happy with what you're doing. We're even some people the other day were like, oh, we're happy to see you moving up. You've done a great job, on the town, and we want to see you go up to the county. And which Liam can tell you, he heard it, and it's heartwarming, and it makes you feel good that the work that you're doing and the time that you put in matters to people, and that's what I want my public service to do, to matter to the people of the town of Carmel.
Okay. Your campaign emphasizes protecting the taxpayers and responsible fiscal leadership. What specific policies or spending priorities would you focus on first if elected?
Well, one of the things that I just mentioned to you about making sure that our fiscal house is in order, that we in the county are doing what's right by the residents in the individual towns. And we need better infrastructure in our county. Our roads, a lot of them are not in great shape. This winter was awful. It created a lot of potholes. It created a lot of issues. And we need to make sure that the towns have the money now through sales tax sharing, that we can take care of our infrastructure, because that matters to the people when they're driving back and forth to work. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure, I know that they just redid some contracts that are fair to our municipal employees and fair to the taxpayers. And I will continue working based upon my experience in the past as a negotiator to make sure that our contracts are fair to both the municipal workers and to the taxpayers, to make sure that, hey, we're not spending more than we need to, that there's always areas that we can possibly cut and reduce tax burden on the taxpayers. I'm sure you know that the county tax burden on your tax bill is roughly 11%. Mm-hmm. Your town tax, which you get police and roads and highways and parks, is roughly 12%. Mm-hmm. And the rest is your school tax. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, that's what we got to look out for, is the increases in the school taxes, especially when we have declining enrollment. Why are our school taxes going up? Why are our seniors having to face, I guess I need to sell my house because I can't afford the school tax increases? And in the past 5 years, the school tax increases on an average home of roughly $500,000 has gone up $2,000. I pay school taxes. You pay school taxes. Mm-hmm. Leslie pays school taxes. So for anybody to say, Bill Clinton in his campaign in 1992 used to say, because the economy wasn't great during the last W years, I feel your pain. I'm not sure how you can feel somebody's pain if you're not paying those bills. If you're not sending children to school, paying tuition, paying a mortgage, paying taxes, paying grocery bills, paying rent, paying all these expenses that a family has, but yet we continue to increase our school tax burden on people who, most of them, half of our town probably doesn't have kids who go to school here. Right. And I love our schools. And I'm so happy that we have a new school superintendent, Vincent DeGrande, coming back. So happy. He and I worked together when he was Mayapack Middle School principal. At the time, I wanted to implement a drug prevention classes, just some seminars. And he said, Frank, let's do it. And we did it, at the time. I was working with Senator Murphy. I was working with, God rest his soul, Judge Reitz. And we went into, and I wanted to do it right before the summer because that's when, if you remember in the past, we were having fatalities with kids overdosing or driving while intoxicated or driving while stoned, and it was every summer, So I thought, hey, let's do these classes, let's do these programs, prevention programs, right before the summer started. This way it's fresh in their mind. And Vinny, to his credit, said, Frank, I'll make the time. And we did that. And with him, we also, at the time, I was coaching MSA, I was on the town board, and we had a lot of families, unfortunately, in our town that can't afford food, and we were able to do Thanksgiving food drives. And Vinny texted me the other day after I congratulated him for his new job. He goes, Frank, I still remember you and we have a picture of us holding up frozen turkeys for the Thanksgiving food drive. And we did 35 families or 40 families or 45 families, unfortunately, from the middle school that needed help. And I helped organize all that. And over the years, I've done multiple food drives that benefited our St. John's Food Pantry. Do you know that our St. John's Food Pantry is actually a county food pantry?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
so
didn't know
as
that.
long as you're a resident of, actually they don't turn anybody away.
Right.
But as long as you're a resident of Putnam County, on Fridays you can use the St. John's Food Pantry. And there were times when it was running low, especially during COVID, and we organized, myself and Councilman Channel at the time, a food drive. And we raised, I can't even tell you. Then a couple of weeks later, as a member of the Knights of Columbus in Carmel, we did the same thing for the St. James Food Pantry. So throughout my career, wherever there's been a need for the residents, I came up with some kind of solution to help. And we've done that, and I've lent my name to the Scouts, and I'm an Eagle. Oh, one thing that people don't know about me, I'm an Eagle Scout. So once you're an Eagle Scout, you're always an Eagle Scout. You don't say, oh, you were an Eagle Scout. Right, Liam? I still am an Eagle Scout. And Liam's on his road. He'll be an Eagle Scout probably within the next 6 to 8 months. So we have to go to his ceremony.
Okay.
All right? I'm sure he's going to invite us, and there'll be so many people there that we'll have to stand in the back, because so many people love Liam and the work that he's doing as a scout and as a scout leader himself. But whether it be the Scouts, the Knights of Columbus, coaching our youth, being a scout leader, being part of Community Cares, which Amy Sage used to head, and that helped women who were going through cancer. I lent my name to that. We did drives. I was an MC one time. I got a friend of mine. I was an auctioneer, and I got a friend of mine at the time. I won't mention his name. There was a TV, and I basically he didn't need another TV, but I got him because it was a great event. It was a great charity, and we did all that kind of stuff. And I continue to do that because I love this town. I love the people of this town, and there's always a way to help. And I'm always going to find a way to do that.
You touched a little bit about your drug safety initiative that you had with the school with
Yes.
Mr. DeGrande. You've highlighted public safety as a major issue. What do you believe are the biggest safety concerns facing Putnam County residents right now, and how would you address them?
Mm-hmm. Well, we always have the issue of driving while intoxicated or driving while under the influence, including drugs and marijuana, things like that. So that's an issue. Speeding is an issue, and sometimes accidents and safety issues with regard to our roads are because of the conditions of our roads. You hit a pothole, not realizing how fast you're going, and now you're veering off into another lane, and you're hitting another car.
Yeah.
So we have to, and our sheriff's department, amazing. Our Carmel Police Department, amazing. And they do a great job with that, but we need to continue to focus on public safety. And we've provided, in my time on the town board, the police department with the tools for the men and women of the Carmel Police Department to do their job to keep our residents safe.
And the last question that I've produced myself before we get into the questions I've received from
Sure.
our viewers. What's an issue in Putnam County that you believe isn't getting enough attention right now?
That's a great question. I think the
I have
issue...
a lot of great questions.
No, you're a smart lady. I think one of the issues is the issue of our seniors and the fact that they are being taxed out of the homes that they've had all their lives. And a big part of it is the school taxes that they are burdened to have to pay. That's a big issue that has to be addressed somehow. We have many school districts in Putnam County, and maybe there needs to be a discussion about consolidating some, so this way there's not an overlay of administrators. Maybe that can reduce some of the overhead, but there needs to be a discussion about consolidating of services. And we've done some of that with Putnam County and the town of Carmel with regard to things like plowing certain roads and sharing some services. But I think for the benefit of the taxpayers, there needs to be a discussion about consolidating and sharing of services where there's that overlapping, where it will save money. It will save the county money. It will save the residents of Carmel and Mahopac, tax dollars.
All right. I want to kindly mention the sponsor of today's episode once again, Chairman Fannin and the Carmel Republican Committee. Want to make a real difference in Carmel and Mahopac? Join the movement shaping your hometown's future. Follow the Carmel GOP on Facebook to stay informed, get involved, and help strengthen the Republican voice right here at home. Okay. So like I said, I received some questions from our viewers, so we'll get into that right now.
Be kind.
All right. First question. Dave McKay Wilson broke the story that the Carmel GOP is trying to remove 2 committee members for carrying your opponent's petitions. One committee member subject for removal is a sitting county legislator, Jake D'Angelo, who's been on the show twice. What are your thoughts on this?
So I read the stories and I followed them and what was happening. Now, of course, I'm in the middle of my campaign, so I'm doing door-to-door, I'm doing all kinds of other things. But here's the issue. We have a Republican committee for a purpose, and you join it for a purpose, and you want to lend your voice to who the committee will select as a Republican candidate for any office to go against a Democrat in a general election. And there's a process, and if you're part of the committee, you have to follow the process, and the process is, somebody gets nominated, and then there's a vote. And in my situation, there was a vote for Legislative District 8, and the vote was 23-4 for me.
So anyone that who's in the committee who resides in that district are the only ones that can vote.
Correct. And these are all people that obviously I've known over the years, acquaintances, friends, yes, but they all know what I've done in my tenure on the town board, and they supported me. And one of the bylaws of the committee, and again, you're free not to be in the committee and do whatever you like and support whoever you like. But there's been instances in my tenure on the Republican committee of 20 years where the committee decides on someone and that person gets nominated. And it might not have been the person that I wanted, but if I want to be a member in good standing of the Republican committee, I have to go and get petitions signed for that person because I'm a designee of the Carmel Republican Committee. So when you break the rules, or you want to break the rules, drop out of the committee and do whatever you like. But the rules of the committee, and again, the bylaws of the committee weren't just adopted by the executive committee, they were voted on by everybody there. So if the rules say, hey, if the committee endorses somebody, you need to go and work for that candidate, get them signatures. If you don't want to do that, then why do you still want to be on the committee? Nobody's forcing you to be on the committee. If you don't like the decision that the committee made, and in this particular case, like I said, Amy Sage nominated me at that committee, and Leslie will tell you the speech that she gave would bring you to tears. I mean, it was so heartfelt. It really meant a lot to me. But I was nominated. My opponent nominated himself because nobody else from the committee would nominate him for this position. If you don't want to be part of that organization, it's just like any other organization. You choose to be in it, you have to adhere to the rules. If you don't want to adhere to the rules, you don't need, nobody's forcing you to be part of the committee. Do your own thing. You know, so, I mean, it's not my law, it's not my rule, it's the committee's rule. And if you break the rules, why do you need to be on the committee?
Okay. Do you support ballot access for candidates not backed by a party committee?
I support, if I'm on the committee, which I have been for many years, I support and have supported the Republican endorsed candidate. Period, end of story. One of the reasons why even Congressman Lawler had a meeting with all the candidates and potential candidates and elected officials, and he says, guys, it's just so important, especially this year. Primaries are fights within the family.
Yeah, I don't really care for them. To be honest with you.
And they're terrible. And
Yeah.
I've been through primaries before. My first election, there were 6 of us running for for the town board, and myself and one other candidate were the endorsed candidates. But there were 6, and I came in first because I worked, because my experience as an attorney, because my experience as a dad, my experience in involvement in the community. So primaries are ugly, and the whole reason why the committee, I think, has those rules is because there's a bigger picture. The bigger picture is actually winning the election in November, and you want to put forth the best candidate. And if the committee decides who the best candidate is for that seat, then as a committee person, you should adhere to the rules that were voted upon, which I'm sure these gentlemen voted for those rules as well.
They were adopted rules.
They were voted on adopted rules,
Right,
correct?
right.
Yeah. So if you don't, again, it's like a baseball game. If you don't like the rules of baseball, don't play.
Play cricket. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how to play cricket.
I
but,
really don't want
but
to.
yeah,
It's similar. That's what I
nobody's
hear.
forcing you, to
Yeah.
be part of it.
All right. So you emphasize experience matters on the campaign trail. In your opinion, is 6 years of school board service, 5 years of state senate legislative experience, and a master's degree in public administration and public policy not enough experience to be a county legislator?
It could be, but when I'm one of the candidates who has 30 years of practice as an attorney, almost 15 years on the town board, 5 years on the planning board, a few years community service on the environmental conservation board, all these things matter and experience. I have experience in the legislature too. I was legislative assistant to Senator Murphy, so I was up in Albany. So yes, but it depends upon what that experience actually is. If you're referring to my candidate, who I'm
You mean your opponent?
my opponent,
Mhm.
It's great that everybody gets an education, and you should, but I also have a degree in public administration from Fordham University as well, and a law degree from St. John's, one of the top law schools in the country. But again, it's not about just experience, it's what you've done through that time. And in my opponent's tenure on the school board, he's voted for every tax increase that there was. Even last year, and it's on video, and I'm not sure why he was allowed to participate in school board meetings while he was living up in Albany, working for the legislature. But anyway, it's on video where he says, well, I could agree to a 0, but I could also agree to a 1 or a 2. Well, if you're fighting for the taxpayers and everybody else on the board is saying we don't need a tax increase, then you should say, I don't need a tax increase. If your experience on the school board has been someone who has brought the issue of changing the name of our mascot, which has been forever, and he was a big proponent of that, which ended up costing the taxpayers of the Mahopac School District
$500,000, yeah. $500,000.
$500,000. And you go into the school auditorium, right, Leslie, and you see all the signs that had to get changed from the logo from Mahopac Indians to Wolfpack, and the same thing with the with the logo on the football field. That's $500,000 that the taxpayers didn't need to spend, but my opponent thought that the name Mahopac Indians should not be used anymore. However, if you look at school districts in Long Island, Massapequa, they said, no, we're not changing, because the logo is not it wasn't defamatory. In fact, it was more a tribute to those who were there before.
Mm-hmm.
Massapequa said, sorry, and the President of the United States and the Secretary of Education stood with that school district and said, you're not changing anything. It's the people of that district who decide. So that's big. You know, when you say you have legislative experience, yet you are running in a Republican primary, but you supported one of the most progressive state senators, Peter Harcum, a few years ago, and you actually went into your own pocket to do a full-page ad in the Mahopac News with your name on it, supporting Peter Harcum, who was one of the authors of the cashless bond, cashless bail, of the Green New Deal, of more recently wanting to stifle the local control when it came to things like battery storage facilities. So is that the experience that we're talking about? Is his experience on the school board when it came to an opportunity to stand up for the parents of our school district and say, hey, we should not be having pornographic books in our school library, and his decision, and it was his decision, to abstain, and he was quoted as saying, we should not be, I don't believe in removing books from school. Well, I'm sorry, as a parent of children, like yourself, like, those books don't belong in our public schools. Maybe they belong somewhere else. I don't think they do. I don't think they belong in society, but they certainly don't belong in our Mahopac school libraries. So if that's the experience that you're talking about, then that's not really Republican values. So when it comes to a Republican primary, if those are the things that you believe, those are not the things that I believe. And when I've been going door to door to people, they don't believe those things either. They don't believe in cashless bail. And in fact, one of the things that I've done ever since they've passed the cashless bail, I've drafted and had the town board every year at the start of the legislative session send a resolution of the town board to Albany, to all the elected officials up in Albany, saying, we feel that the cashless bail, which was authored by Peter Harcum, who was supported by Tanner McCracken, is not the right thing for the safety of the residents of the town of Carmel, and we want it repealed. And unfortunately, year after year after year, we keep sending the resolution and nothing gets done about it. Mm. Those are not the values of Putnam County. Those are not the values of the people of District 8. So you can say what you want to say, but your record matters. And I've lived in this district for 23 years. I know the people of this district. My opponent moved into the district right before Christmas in order to run. He lived all the way on the other side of town. He could have ran, I guess, where he lived, but he decided to move into the district just to run for office. I mean, that doesn't sound right to you, does it?
I'm gonna abstain.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking your opinion. I'm just, I just, you know.
And last question, but I think you might have already touched on this,
Yeah.
and it might be kind of repetitive or redundant. What separates you from your opponent, Tanner McCracken?
Well, like I said, I'm a dad of 3. I'm a taxpayer. I pay my school taxes, I pay my property taxes, I pay a mortgage. I've raised my children. They've all gone through high school and college, and I've had to manage paying taxes, paying expenses of school. I've have my 15 years of experience on the town board. I have 30 years as a private practice attorney. I'm not in government. I know my opponent works in government, but I worked in private practice for 30 years, and at this particular law firm, it's 11 years. And the difference between working in government and working in the private sector is you make a mistake, you can lose your job tomorrow. So you got to make sure you're doing the right thing. In government, that's not usually the case. So I have the experience of managing a budget, a personal budget, where I'm paying taxes, where I'm paying a mortgage, where I've finished paying tuition, paying a car payment and insurance. And unfortunately, those are not things that my opponent has to worry about. So when, people, the key word, I guess because of the election in New York City, of the mayor, was affordability. But you and I know about affordability because we have to pay those bills. And when there's a budget, I have to look at it and say, can people like me afford this tax increase? Can people like me who are sending their kids to school and paying a tuition and paying a mortgage, can they afford what I'm not one of those who say you have to own property to be in office. I'll never say that. But what I'm saying is I relate better to the residents of Legislative District 8 who pay those taxes because I do. And my opponent has raised taxes on residents in the school district, yet he doesn't have to pay those taxes. So don't lecture us about affordability or changing things about affordability when you don't have to worry about those things. But people like you and I and the vast majority of the residents of the state have to worry about those things. So that was, and I've been a lifelong Republican. Lifelong, since I was 18 years old. I actually worked for a New York State Senator, the only Republican state senator in the Bronx. I've never, ever, ever supported a Democrat, let alone took money out of my pocket, put my name on a newspaper ad and said, hey, support this progressive Democrat over the Republican nominee for New York State Senate. But yet you call yourself a Republican. How do you do that?
I think Liam, though, has you beat, right? He's 15 and he's a conservative.
I'm very worried. I'm very worried that Liam's going to take my seat right now. So I'm glad that he's only 15, because when he turns 18 and he wants, whether it be the seat on the county legislature, Liam, all you have to do is ask. I'll pack up my stuff and you can have it, my friend.
So, we're at an hour and 4 minutes, so I'm scared to say this, but before we conclude this episode, are there any other campaign talking points or a final message you want to share?
No, listen, it's been a privilege and honor of my life to have represented the people of the town of Carmel for the past 14 plus years. I have a passion for this town. I have a passion for making sure that the lives of our residents are better, that our children grow up in a safe environment, that we are still one of the safest towns in all of America, that our roads are better, that we have access to parks and our environment, and we have more trees than buildings, which is amazing. That's why so many people like me who grew up in the Bronx and Yonkers and upstate moved to Carmel, moved to Mahopac, moved to Putnam County, because it's such an amazing county. The people are incredible. Everybody's so friendly and giving, and man, oh man, we are a very, very patriotic community. And I'm proud to be supported and endorsed by the Putnam County Republican Chairman, Andres Gill, who's a decorated war veteran. I have so many other veteran friends who support me, including Councilman Robert Kearns, who will be our next supervisor, who I sit with now. It comes down to dedication and experience, and I just haven't showed up Johnny come lately. I've been participating in everything that's gone on in this town that's benefited the residents, whether it be food drives, drives for United for the Troops, which I'm a part of as well. The Knights of Columbus, serving our churches, serving
And
our
you're going to be
community.
remiss if you don't mention Back the Blue.
And well, no, you got to let me finish. You got to let me finish my thought. And yes, and it is also a privilege and honor to be the vice president of the Black the Blue Committee. And how that started is, of course, during, I guess, the same time as the pandemic and the George Floyd stuff, that our police officers were being attacked in media and whatever. We wanted to make sure that our police officers here in the town of Carmel knew how much we appreciate them, we respect them, and we need them. And we will continue to have Back the Blue marches and events showing our police officers, men and women of the Carmel Police Department and our Putnam County Sheriff's Department, how much we appreciate and need them and appreciate their dedication to our town.
What is your website, Facebook, Instagram account that people can search and learn more about you and your campaign?
So our website is Lombardi for Putnam. I have an Instagram account, Lombardi for Putnam. I have my personal one, and generally they're the same. You know, the friends that I have on Facebook are friends, and they support me. And just the other night, I kept getting text messages all night long. I want a sign, I want a sign, I want a lawn sign. So me and my son, just in one night, put out 40 lawn signs throughout District 8. And I got more yesterday. And it's just, there's a connection. People, when I go to the door, they're like, oh yeah, Frank, of course we know you. Who doesn't like you? You know, like, why wouldn't we vote for you? Of course, we've seen you, everything that you've done in this community, this town. You put your heart and soul into it, and I have. And I've dedicated my time, I've dedicated my name to all the great events and all the great organizations that make this town as great as it is. And I'm proud to be supported by all those elected officials that I told you earlier. Congressman Lawler, Assemblyman Matt Slater, County Executive Byrne, Legislator Amy Sage, whose seat I hope to fill, several other legislators, Dan Birmingham, an old good friend and a smart man who's on the legislature, an attorney as well, supports me. And they're not supporting me because I'm just a name. They're supporting me because I've worked with them, I've known them, they know my capabilities, they know my dedication and my work ethic to this town. And I think in my tenure, when I started to today, I think the town of Carmel is better, not just because of me, but I think I had something to do to contribute to making it the
I'm
best
just
town in
smirking
Carmel.
because this was about your Facebook and Instagram account.
Wow. Well,
He's
anyway,
he's on a roll. He's on a
all right,
roll.
I'm
I
finished.
know.
I'm finished.
All right. So
you really
quick-
keep me in line, aren't you?
I'm trying.
Wow.
All right.
You know, I figured this was your quote unquote and we don't want it to be, but this is your final podcast.
My swan
We should just make it the best and the greatest that it could be.
Make it, yeah. No. All right. So, anyways, quick public service announcement, and it will be here before we know it. The primary election is June 23rd from 6 o'clock a.m. to 9 p.m. It's open to the public to vote. All right.
Yes,
Now,
and early voting.
I didn't have that information.
tell it to you.
Okay, tell me.
Early voting, June 13th to the 21st. I don't think it's at 6 a.m., but I think 9 a.m. till 6 at the Board of Elections office. And then here in District 8, there are 2 polling locations on, depending on where you live, on that day, June 23rd. half of District 8 will be voting at St. John's Church downstairs, and the other half, I believe, is at the middle school. No, I'm sorry, at the Falls School, at the Falls.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So if anyone has any questions about where they vote, they can either call the Board of Elections, they can call me, text me, ask me in the store, ask me in church, and I will be more than happy to tell them. And I also, again, I want to thank Leslie for being here, and Liam. Liam, I hope you learned something today, helps you in your career, helps you in your scouting career with some of the merit badges towards community service in the nation, in the town, and in our state. And I know you'll have more podcasts later on. And again, I wanted to thank you on behalf of the residents of the town of Carmel and Putnam County for taking time away from your family and staying up at night and writing your scripts.
That's the only way it could happen.
Yes, and it takes dedication, and so I want to thank you for all that you've done, because I do watch your podcasts and they're very informative. And one day I know you'll be interviewing Liam, who will be sitting here, and who knows what he'll be, the questions that you'll have for him at that time. But again, on behalf of the residents of the town of Carmel, we want to thank you for this podcast and for everything that you do in your dedicated service to our town.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. All right. So there you have it, folks. Frank D. Lombardi, Carmel Town Councilman, Deputy Supervisor, candidate for Putnam County Legislator of District 8. It's been great having you on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
So as Frank, he did that very heartfelt, message. As I wrap up my final episode of Beyond the Ballot, I just want to sincerely thank everyone who watched, supported, shared, and engaged with the podcast along the way. It's been an incredible experience having meaningful conversations about the issues and people shaping our community. And I'm truly grateful to everyone who tuned in and was part of the journey. Thank you.